Hi, everyone. Welcome to the latest episode show discussion with Omar and Poupart. We're on YouTube on the All Dolphins podcast. We're also, you can hear us wherever you listen to your podcast on the Fans First Sports Network under Miami Dolphins Insider. And we're still a little ways away from the start of training camp, but that doesn't mean that there's stuff to talk about. And unfortunately, one of the things that we need to discuss that we probably would rather not discuss is a situation involving Tyreek Hill, which remains kind of a mystery wrapped inside a dilemma and around a quandary. I forget how the saying goes from the old movie JFK. So what do we make of all of this, Omar?
I will preface this by saying that I have an ex-wife who used to be in law enforcement. And so I have a lot of experience and knowledge primarily from the inside. Once a case has been pushed up to the state attorney's office, that means there's legally no grounds that the police department has to file a case, file for an arrest or put out a warrant for an arrest. So that's good. It benefits Tyreek Hill. However, there's video evidence. We don't know what the video evidence looks like, but if the police have looked at the video evidence and it looked like there was an assault made, Tyreek would have been arrested that day or the minute an officer had seen that an assault has been committed. So I think this is positive for Tyreek that it's gone up to the state attorney's office. Clearly, it looks like this is headed in the civil suit direction. He will probably still be in trouble with the NFL, even if it is a civil suit. But ultimately, I don't think he's going to be arrested, and I don't think that this is going to cost him a game. I think that this is a horrible incident that's happened, and not horrible, but a bad incident that's happened, but a great reminder to players that in this month of freedom or 5 weeks of freedom that you have between times that you should be training, go out and have your fun, but be smart about it.
Yeah, and it very well maybe. I know people are already asking, what kind of suspension could he be looking at? Again, based on what you just said, and based on the fact that, again, if the video showed something egregious, something would have happened by now.
Absolutely.
And it's not, we're not looking at a Kareem Hunt situation where the video was really, really, really bad. And as I recall correctly, I think he got 8 games. It's entirely possible that he may not wind up getting anything if he does get a suspension based on what we know right now. It's probably not going to be very long. What's going to happen is to me, it's very possible it could end up being that the repercussions of this, it's a bad PR hit for a guy who had a bad reputation coming into the NFL, early in the NFL, has worked to rehabilitate his image, and dude is all over the place in the community, doing camps everywhere, working with kids through the Soul Runner Speed Academy and camps, and then appearing at Xavier Howard's celebrity softball game. And this is just a bad PR hit because, unfortunately, it's the nature of things, and it's not unfair that his past is going to be brought up because of what happened.
It's yes, his past is going to be brought up. I don't think. I haven't seen the video, and I'm sure it'll eventually leak out there from TMZ or whoever gets a hand of it for money, and we'll judge it from there and move on accordingly. It doesn't seem like it's too much to be extremely alarmed about. It doesn't seem like it's something to be extremely alarmed about. Is it a sign of bad behavior or a guy who can't control his anger? Even based on the incident that I read, it sounded as if he was protecting some women. Am I incorrect on this?
Well, yeah, I think you might be reading into it because according to police report, it's basically the 2 women were told to get off the boat and an argument ensued. Now, how did the guy ask the women to get off the boat? That's not included in the police report, or it hasn't come out. So I think we're jumping to conclusions here. And here's the thing is, regardless of how minor the incident is, given his background, he is somebody, and anybody who has the things that he has in his past should be, err on the side of
caution. Yeah.
Forget caution, of being like overly pacifist, if you catch my drift.
In his situation, he should be able to point and say, go take care of that. I hear.
Correct. Like, I'm not getting involved. I don't need any of this.
Well, okay, that's fair, but men and macho mentality and egos, I don't know what happened. All we're doing is speculating what happened. I think he's smart. This is a $20 million franchise. This individual, his existence is, and that franchise takes a hit. If he has situations like this, I think he's worked extremely hard to protect himself and protect his image. This is a hiccup that I believe that will pass. It probably cost him some money, as these civil suits often do, and don't be shocked when a civil suit is filed, because that seems to be where it's clearly headed. But I think that I think that he will learn from this, and he will be better from this.
And this is also where it's interesting that you mentioned where this is headed. It's interesting that Drew's choice of words when he was on his local WSVN Sports Extra appearance, he called it an ongoing situation. He didn't call it an ongoing investigation. He called it an ongoing situation, which kind of, like, if you read between the lines, kind of suggests a situation is dealing with the victim and, taking care of that particular issue.
Not Drew's first rodeo.
No, and it brings to mind another question, because I did a mailbag over the weekend, and one of the questions was like dealt with, like, in a worst case scenario, which we neither of us believe is going to happen, that Tyreek was going to be suspended for a bit, just how valuable, how difficult to replace he would be. And to me, if we're going to talk about most irreplaceable Dolphin players, I think both of us would agree right now it's Tua, because of the lack of a bona fide, established, true
quality backup
quarterback.
Yeah.
In terms of the impact on, like, one game itself, I think it's Tyreek, because of everything he does for the offense and the space he creates and all the problems he causes for opposing defense.
I think that they have enough weapon. I hear what you're saying, and I usually do that as well in terms of, like, the most irreplaceable player. I definitely would put Tua at number one, just because he does not have a quality backup. Number two, in my opinion, in terms of the most irreplaceable player to me, would be Teron Armstead, because
I can respect that.
He absolutely stabilizes the entire offensive line. Hey, man, Tua won games with mom and pop wide receivers, with Mac Hollins and Devontae Parker when he was healthy, and
you mean the Dolphins won games with Tua at quarterback when the wide receivers weren't that great? That's good. Again, quarterbacks do not win games by themselves. I'm sorry, go ahead.
They certainly get a lot of praise and credit for winning games. They are never by themselves.
By the way, I'm sorry, let me interject here. A quote from Mike McDaniel last year. He literally said, quarterbacks do not win games by themselves. Quarterbacks can lose games by themselves.
I like that.
How about that?
Yeah, I like that. Turnover, I can see that. Tua, we will not argue that Tua had one of the worst wide receiving cores in the NFL his first 2 years, correct? First three.
Yeah, Jalen Waddle in 2021.
Okay, that they turned into a slot receiver. So, I mean, yes. Okay, all right. His first season, shall we argue that Tua had one of the worst receiving cores in the NFL and still had a winning record? Okay,
the Dolphins had a winning record, and so did Ryan Fitzpatrick. But okay.
Okay. So
and they put up 43 points against San Francisco with that same crappy wide receiver.
My point is that, with Mike Gesicki and the boys,
yes.
Tua won games, and I have I have conviction and confidence that Tua could win games with Waddle, Chosen, and Braxton Berrios, who would be the top three receivers, and then you could sprinkle in whoever you want. Eric Uzukama, maybe we actually see him have a productive NFL game and a breakout game. So I have confidence that they can win games without Tyreek. Now, does it make it harder? Absolutely, but it's not impossible. Whereas I would probably put it at impossible you win games without Teron Armstead. Just my personal opinion, because I maybe I shouldn't say that, because I need to see Isaiah Wynn play left tackle, who I would probably be that fill-in, but it would be difficult.
Okay. No, and we saw last year there were times I think the Dolphins actually stats wise won one game without Armstead in the lineup, and that was against the Jets in the regular season finale when they won 11-6 because the Jets offense wasn't going to score a touchdown if they played 20 quarters.
Wasn't Mike White the quarterback for that game?
Sorry?
Wasn't Mike White the quarterback?
No, it was Joe Flacco. It was Joe Flacco behind a horrible Jets offensive line. It was Joe
Hold on,
Flacco.
didn't Mike White like try to play, or is that the week before?
It was the week before. He didn't play against the Dolphins.
Yeah.
He was shut down, and they got Zach Wilson in the first game. No, but okay, we're kind of on the same page. But I think the Dolphin offense, though, however, goes from potentially explosive when you have Tyreek Hill, and then to potentially good without Tyreek Hill, because I guess there are some weapons at wide receiver, but also you could make the case Jalen Waddle, Braxton Berrios, Robbie Chosen is how much better than Jalen Waddle. I don't remember who were the wide receivers in 2021. Devontae Parker, was he still here?
Yeah,
who else was there? Is it that much better? I think Tyreek makes a gigantic difference on this offense.
I think that's an understatement.
But no, you think it's an overstatement, right?
Understatement, because
it's an understatement. Okay.
But I think a tremendous difference. Tyreek is. I saw something last week while I was on vacation, and I thought about it. Really gave it some deep thought. Like the most feared players in the NFL. I would put Patrick Mahomes number 1. I would probably put Lamar Jackson number 2, just because I know how players privately view Lamar Jackson, and then I would put Tyreek Hill number 3, because there's no way that, I mean, defenders know, like, you're not running with him. Like, it's impossible. And no shade to any other fast receiver out there, but Tyreek Hill moves at a different speed. And I knew he was good, and I knew he was fast until I watched him in practice and realized, hey, this guy's impossible to cover. Like, he just moves at a, I learned this during covering the University of Miami, where I covered a lot of great receivers. Reggie Wayne, Santana Moss, Andre Johnson, to name a few. And Devin Hester was in that unit. There is a difference between quickness and speed. Some guys have quickness, some guys have speed, some guys have quickness and speed. And then some guys have elite quickness, but not elite speed, or elite speed and not elite quickness. And that was always Devin Hester's situation, where Devin Hester had quickness. He didn't have speed. Quickness is stop-start. So he quickly accelerate to his highest point. And then when he's at his highest point, he's running a 4.4, which is very good. Now, Tyreek has elite quickness and elite speed, which is like mind-blowing when you combine it. So he's quick stop start, and then when he's at full speed, he's still faster than you. So, I mean, I remember watching him in training camp when they started unveiling their real offense and him being in motion. And then I just saw defensive coordinators go up to Josh Boyer like, bro, what? Like, looking at him like, what are we supposed to do? Like what do we do with this? Like, he's in motion, he's choosing option routes, and no matter what I pick, it's wrong. And like, am I wrong when defenders were like throwing up their hands? Like,
no, and I was the same way. I like, okay, you've seen him play, like, either on television or when he's on the opposing team, and then you watch him in practice, and it's like, holy smokes, this guy's fast. I mean, it's like you picture in your mind like just how fast a guy is, and it still doesn't match what the reality was. And it was like,
I am absolutely 1,000% on board. Remember Ted Ginn? And Ted Ginn was fast. Ted Ginn
straight line fast.
Exactly. Ted Ginn didn't have quickness, but when he got to full speed, he was fast.
Correct.
Tyreek, to me, it's the quickness, and that's why I brought up Devin Hester, because from Devin Hester, I learned quickness is far more important than fast, because fast is me outrunning you on a straightaway. Quickness is about separation. and creating that space, that open window that makes you quarterback friendly. And Tyreek, whoo, Lord, it's impressive. And, goes to show that, especially when he admits, and I know you don't believe it, that he didn't really know the offenses and was out there running option routes. And
he knew it well enough.
He knew it well enough, but to admit that you're out there just freestyling and with the quarterback and hand signals, like, that's pretty damn impressive. 1,700 yards out there freestyling.
Yep.
And to the point where I had to talk to cornerbacks and be like, hey, is that possible? And they were like, yeah, for a guy like Tyreek, it's absolutely possible. He can run 3 routes and give you 1,500 yards. Like goes, comebacks, slants, drags, 4 routes.
Correct. Yeah, correct. It's not like Tyreek needs to make 5 moves at the line of scrimmage to shake a guy. He just basically, and again, there were a lot of plays where he was given like a ton of cushion, and then he just like runs hard 20 yards down the field, and then either cuts inside or comes back, and it's a 5-yard window. There was and I know you don't want to hear it, but there were a lot of easy pitch and catch.
Still got to be accurate quarterback to put the ball in position for the receiver to catch it in stride and continue to run.
Sure, but let's not pretend, your favorite saying, let's not pretend like that's not something that a lot of quarterbacks would have been able to do. So
don't say a lot.
We digress.
A dozen to a dozen and a half quarterback. Don't say a lot, because you're saying
dozen and a half is 18 quarterbacks. That's more than half the league. So okay. No, I was going to make a point that this may sound crazy, and I don't know if you agree with me. There were times last year in training camp when I looked at Jalen Waddle and they're like, wow, is he as fast as I thought he was? Because he was running next to Tyreek.
Yeah, no, I don't even. And no disrespect to Jalen Waddle, I don't even view Jalen Waddle as fast, like, anymore. Like, once you sit there and you compare anything to Tyreek, it's not even relevant anymore.
Yeah, but then you watch the clips of his 2 long touchdowns against Green Bay off the short crosser, and at Buffalo off the deep slant, and he just basically blows everybody by behind him. And against Green Bay, like, the only one who's running down the field with him is Tyreek.
Yeah.
I mean, once he got the corner, I mean, it is some kind of crazy speed. Okay, let's move on to a different topic. And this relates to the column you wrote for alldolphins.com. And
an important column that I hope people will read, because this is something that I really discovered recently. And I've thought about it. I've written about it. I've addressed it. There are a lot of guys who are free agents, 29. There are a lot of guys who are in option years. I think the max total comes up to 41 players on this roster who I project will make the 53 are basically going to be free agents or put the team in position to release them so that they can create cap space. That's more than half of your roster that's potentially going to be reset next year. And then on top of that, you're $32 million over the cap for next season, over the projected cap, because it's all projected.
All right.
And that's without signing anybody. No, Tua's locked up on a 5th-year option. Obviously, if things go well, you're going to try to extend him. I think the extension takes away cap space, not gives it to you.
And you also have the franchise tag in 2025. There's no rush with Tua.
Correct. You're right.
Especially if we're operating under the 1 or 2 year window. I'm sorry, go ahead.
That's true. That's fair. However, you also know that quarterbacks is your most important position, and you make sure that guy is taken care of, especially at the price point where it's going to be more affordable to you, as opposed to waiting 2 years to do a deal when the price probably is going to inflate by 15%. And I'm not saying to do that, because I'm with you. 5th-year option, franchise tag, and then we decide. But you're talking about Robert Hunt, Connor Williams, Christian Wilkins, Zach Sealer, Raekwon Davis. You're talking about throwing Xavier Howard because he's basically in a pay-for-play kind of situation. Jerome Baker, Emmanuel Ogbah. This is the core and the foundation of your team. Whereas, so you look at the situation that they're facing right now, and this is something that I addressed in the column for alldolphins.com. This is a win now. This is the 5th year in a rebuild. When they removed Mike Tannenbaum, fired Adam Gase, handed all power to Chris Greer. Chris Greer was allowed to reset the franchise, trading away great assets for draft picks that turned into Noah Igbenogany and others.
Wow.
Austin Jackson. Hey, this is the reality of where you are, okay? Robert Hunt, Solomon Kinley. Okay, when you do that and you do a reset, I mean, scorched earth reset.
Yes.
Even though you change head coaches and put yourself in position to continue that reset, because it wasn't a let's start over kind of situation. You even kept the defensive coordinator, obviously new defensive coordinator now, but you hope that he uses this talent and picks up from where the last guy left off, or really where Brian Flores left off, because last year was kind of an aberration. This window is now. You're in the 5th year of a reset. Resets don't last 5 years. They're generally 3 to 4 year windows to try to win. Yes, you bought yourself an extension with the Mike McDaniels, and year 2 in his scheme should be better. You pretty much have a 2-year window to win it all, or win at your highest level, or get to the new heights for this franchise, win a playoff game. 2-year window.
That would be a good start, yes.
Yeah, I mean, that's the start. That's the metric. If they don't win a playoff game, the season is a failure, in my opinion. Like, it's been since 2000. Win a playoff.
With the moves that they've made and the steps that they've taken, that three straight winning seasons, first playoff appearance last year, absolutely. If they don't win a playoff game, the season's a failure.
So here's my point to that whole column. You're financially stressed out. I put it in comparison to living off a credit card, where basically you're paying your mortgage, your groceries, your electric, everything is going on a credit card. And at some point, while you have 0 interest on that credit card, if you don't start paying it off now, it's gonna be really tough to dig yourself out of that hole. And yes, if they have success this season, I'm absolutely certain and positive that Steve Ross, who has never been cheap, pinched a penny with this organization, will do what it takes to give him the credit card and say, charge it up. Let's do it again. One more time. Let's go around one more time. But after that, whether you win it or don't win it, you got to blow it up. You got to do what the Los Angeles Rams have done, where you got to toss talent aside and say, hey, we're going to let you sign elsewhere. Hey, we're going to cut you because we need to reset this whole business model. And part of the problem that I see when I foreshadow this is because you're not drafting well enough. You're not drafting well enough to replace what will become expensive talent with younger, cheaper talent. There is no Robert Hunt replacement.
Well, but he's a draft pick, so for that.
Yes, but in 4 years, when he's demanding a $8 million a year contract and you can't afford it, what do? There is no replacement for Connor Williams, unless you're going to make Liam Eichenberg that replacement. So, and because you're not drafting well enough, you're missing on Hunter Longs, you're missing on Liam Eichenberg, who's, is still not a complete miss, but we shall see. You're missing on Noah Igbenogany's, you're missing on Solomon Kinley's, you're missing on Channing Tindall. You've got no younger, cheaper talent. And what you have to do is you have to patch with 1-year contracts and 1-year deals. And that's what this team is made up of right now. And it allows you to get by, but to get better, you have to do better in the draft. And I just, when you evaluate it and you look at it, you're just not seeing it.
No, and you mentioned like draft misses. It's also the price you pay for when you make trades to acquire a lot of veteran guys, and you give up a lot of draft picks too. I mean, they didn't have a first round pick last year or this year, didn't have a first or second last year. So again, the further down you go into the draft, the more difficult it is to nail guys. And building a Super Bowl contender with free agents and trade acquisitions, that can work, but generally that's not a blueprint for a long run. which is what
Yes, it's not a blueprint for a long run. And in fairness to where the Dolphins are, you can win doing this. You can win with this model. I can name you free agents right now, from Dalvin Cook to DeAndre Hopkins to Taylor Lewan to DJ Fluker to Ezekiel Elliott to Jarvis Landry, Marcus Peters, Quan Alexander. I can name you free agents out there, right? Leonard Fournette, that can help Carlos Dunlap, Melvin Ingram. They can help you right now at affordable rates, at cheap prices, and allow you to patch up holes, but it's not a good long-term solution. And my point to this whole argument and the whole discussion is, because we don't argue, is because you're having this all-in approach right now, and I don't disagree with it. I'm signing Dalvin Cook and using up half of my $12 million in cap space.
Oh, really? You're on board with that?
Yeah. Surprise. I'm taking that approach because I know it has to pay off now. It absolutely has to pay off now, because I can't afford to keep living off credit cards.
Okay, 2 quick points I want to make. Number one, the issue of Steve Ross's willingness to keep handing out cash. I don't think that's the problem in this window being tight, because Steve Ross is 83 years old, and I think you and I both know how badly he wants a Super Bowl attached to his name to make him a success in football, along with real estate. That's number one. Number two, the issue where it's going to happen is Steve Ross can want to dish out money as much as he wants, but there's such a thing as a cap, and the cap numbers become ridiculous for certain players the further down you move on. Another quick point, that just for clarification purposes, Chris Greer officially has been the GM since 2016, but in reality, he did not have full
all power
roster decisions until 2019, because Mike Tannenbaum was the exec vice president of football operations, and Adam Gase, after he was hired by the Jets, in his press conference basically said, I had control over the roster. I didn't even ask for it, they gave it to me. So either Gase or Tannenbaum had heavy say in the roster composition before 2019, when Chris Greer became the guy. The other thing too is, I'm going to go back to Dalvin Cook, who may or may not wind up with the Dolphins, but just, I want to stress to me, and I wrote about this on alldolphins.com. If he's doing a radio interview and he's asked, how exciting would the possibility of joining the Dolphins be? Gang, it's 100% certain he's going to say, well, that'd be awesome. I'm a great fit for it. What else is he going to say? Unless, hold on. Unless he's 100% sure he has zero desire, under no circumstances would he play for a team. You ask him about any team and he's going to tell you, yeah, that's a good, I like that situation, all that. And he's going to list the quality, because he's not going to shut any doors when he's looking for money and a contract. So it's just to suggest that, because in answer to a question, what would you think about, how would it be exciting to play for the Dolphins? Him saying, yeah, it would be exciting. The headline doesn't become, Cook said it would be exciting to play for the Dolphins. He answered a question specifically related to the Dolphins, and he said what he's going to say.
He said, we, baby. He said, we. Listen.
Come on, man.
He said, we. Listen, here, it is a perfect situation for him. It is the offense that he wants to run. It is the offense that he already knows. Going back to his,
it's not like the Dolphins are the only team in the NFL that runs this offense.
I'm not. Let me finish my point. I'll let you finish your point.
Go ahead.
Okay. Offense he wants to run. Play city that he lives in.
Yes.
Players that he trains with. Yeah. He's out there training with those running backs right now.
Okay.
He's out there training with that quarterback right now. He knows Tua. He's familiar with Tua. How many players can sit there and tell you, hey man, Tua's got a winning record? Think about everything that's said about him. What's the greatest defense for Tua? And I know you. I've always said, hey man, he's got a winning record. One of I believe at the time 4 quarterbacks in his generation. Oh, don't you do that?
Oh boy, here we go again with the. Okay, so Jay Fiedler then was a great quarterback also.
No. I'm talking about his peers. I'm talking about from everybody from the Kyler Murray draft on up until now. He's one of, I believe, 4 that have winning records. It was Hurts, the quarterback for Patriots. I can't remember his name.
Mac Jones,
Tua, And I believe Kyler Murray, I'm not sure if Kyler Murray has a winning record at this point. But, and especially when you consider he didn't always play with Tyreek Hill. He hasn't had a running game his entire career.
He had a defense that won him games left and right. His first, Omar,
I'm not doing this, Poop.
Omar, we are gonna do this because I just did a story. I'm running a series of the 75 best Dolphin games of the 2000. One of them is Tua's first start, which was a win against the Rams when his passer rating was like 50. He passed for 95 yards. The Dolphins were outgained 475 to 145, and they won because they got 2 defensive touchdowns, 1 on special teams. And that goes as a W in his record. Don't tell me Tua won that game. So this whole thing of like,
Tua didn't lose that game. It was the best defense in the NFL.
A lot of work to lose that game.
He was facing the best defense in the NFL as well at that time.
It was one of the better defenses. Yeah, and they got 130 yards of total offense.
He has a winning record. He puts his team in position.
So did Jay Fiedler. Trent Dilfer won a Super Bowl. Go on.
He puts his team in position to win. When Tua has a lead, how often do they give it up? They don't. So Tua has shown that he has the ability to come from behind and rally team, even though Brian Flores doesn't agree and would rather play Ryan Fitzpatrick. Put all that aside.
Who came back against Vegas? But go ahead.
Yes. Put all of that aside. For Dalvin Cook to sit out there and give you the defense, the quarterback, the wide receivers that are going to open things up for me, the scheme fit, and the location. Bro, put the money with it. And I'm not saying ridiculous money.
But exactly that's the thing. And my point is he's not going to shut the door on anybody else if they're willing to pay significantly more. If it's even close, I agree with you. If it's even close, he's going to sign with the Dolphins. But he's not, I don't think, and I think you have some, I don't think you know Dalvin Cook a lot more than I do. I think if the money is, if there's a substantial gap, he can love the Dolphins all he wants and say everything great about them. Exciting it would be, he's going to play somewhere else.
Absolutely. No question.
So, and if you ask him about, not that he would ever say, because quarterbacks, well, he kind of said that he wants value, but usually guys, if you were to ask him in that interview, if they asked him like, and now how do you feel about the Jets? What would he have said?
He said, I love this opportunity to play with Aaron Rodgers, and they've got a great offensive line and a phenomenal defense and some young, talented wide receivers. Yes,
he would say that about any single team, unless he told his agent, don't accept any phone calls from this team. I'm not playing for them. Then in that case.
What I like about this Dalvin Cook situation, primarily for the Dolphins, is, and this is part of the reason why Steve Ross loves his reputation as a big bidder, because it makes agents want to talk to him and it always keeps him in the mix. And the Dolphins will get a call ultimately when a deal is near consummation and say, this is the deal. Do you want to beat it? Correct. Steve Ross and I've talked to him. He admits, I love that. So that's why I do it. Yes. Is Dalvin Cook using the Dolphins as leverage to raise the price or enhance the bidding? I mean, he probably already knows what the Dolphins offer is. And he probably hasn't accepted it because it's probably a baseline offer and it's not really good enough. It's probably in the $4 million range. He's probably not going to leave another $2 million on the table unless he's kind of forced to. But he has to be able to compare the situation. I think the bidders are Dallas. I think the bidders Denver, and I think the bidders are the Jets. I think it's Miami, Dallas, Denver, and the Jets. And realistically speaking, the Jets and Dallas put you in the Super Bowl conversation. And I think that Dalvin Cook wants to be that piece that puts the team over the edge. Now, who can make him a featured weapon? Probably Denver, not Dallas. It's not Dallas. They've got a franchise back. He'd be in there as a platoon, and I think he's still going to be a platoon here. But in Miami and with the Jets, he'd be a featured weapon. And
not if Javonte Williams and Breece Hall get back to their form, then he's gonna be in a platoon, because those guys are really, really good.
And how often do backs get back to their form coming off an ACL injury?
No, that's correct. That's a question. And
30%.
Very important point we need to make about Dalvin Cook also. There's no rush.
Yeah.
Camps don't start until late July. There's no rush for him.
Somebody could tear an ACL. Saquon Barkley could tear an ACL in the third. He's not going to be participating in camp, so I chose the wrong person. But another back for a upper echelon team can tear their ACL in week 3 of training camp, and Dalvin Cook could be sitting on a Jay Cutler-esque sweetheart deal to save a season. So yes, I'm not rushing if I'm Dalvin Cook. So I completely understand where he is. But right now, while he's out there training with Nick Hicks and Tua and Raheem Mostert and and Jeff Wilson and Tyreek and Jalen, Jalen Watt, you don't think that he's feeling at home, or those guys are saying to him?
Of course,
hey,
I'm not debating that, and I'm not, and I told you, all things being even remotely close to being equal, he's signing with the Dolphins. I think that's very clearly his first preference. It's just, to me, this notion of, look what he said in that serious interview, boom. We already knew. And again, this goes back to, I said this last year when Dolphin teammates were pumping, and actually every offseason, Dolphin players will be pumping the tires of their own teammates. It doesn't mean squat, because what else are they going to say? Or if you literally.
No, I give you a perfect example. Jerome Baker was like, yeah, he got a lot to learn. I'm not going to name the linebacker, but you could pretty much guess it.
Does it rhyme with banning Rindle?
So they don't. No, I've had players privately and publicly warn me, like, yeah, this ain't it.
No, but privately, but it's like, I mean, I remember a couple of years ago, it was like, really the question was to a teammate, what signs have you seen from Tua becoming a leader? I mean, I'm no lawyer, but talk about a leading question. What is a receiver who's like microphones in his face going to say, like, no, I haven't really seen anything. The leader? No, not really. What is he going to say? And then Tua's taking charge and all that. He's going to say what he needs to say. And all of a sudden you got a headline, Tua emerging as a leader.
I knew Tua was a leader. The 2021 camp where Austin Jackson was looking like booty cheeks, and Tua got all up in his face in a scrimmage.
But you get my point, though, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And so it's clear this is not meant to disparage Tua in any way, shape, or form. It's just a point about interviews,
leading questions and
interviews to players about teammates, like Jair Alexander talking about how excited he is to see Jordan Love play at quarterback for the Packers. What else is he going to say? Man, we were in trouble here. I really wish we hadn't traded.
He ain't Aaron Rodgers.
Exactly. You gotta do some logic. So, I think we're about out of time here. So, any closing thoughts before we wrap up another edition?
Let's get the Dalvin Cook done.
It ain't not happening until, my guess is, let's say camp starts the last week of July. He signs July 22nd.
I think he might skip the first week of camp. I think he might wait it out till, we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens.
Yep. Wow, I go out on a limb and throw out a date, and you're like, we'll see what happens. I could have done that too.